Renee Flagler is an accomplished author, speaker, leader, and entrepreneur. She has worked in the marketing industry, building brands and companies such as Verizon, as well as made her mark in the publishing industry through her symposiums and many books. Today, she leads Girls Inc. of Long Island, where she inspires young women to dream big. Renee Flagler joins us to discuss her most recent book, Dream Journey, a spiritual guide for professionalizing your passion. Please welcome Renee Flagler. Hi, Renee.
Hello. Hi.
I'm excited. I read your book and I was having some moments. I was like, oh, and I'm just excited to jump right in. And so I think we should. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Okay. The book is called Dream Journey, a spiritual guide for professionalizing your passion.
Yes.
Tell us about the book.
Sure. So this book is all about taking the things that you're passionate about, the things that your natural gifts and talents and abilities, and creating a career path and a lifestyle from it. So I consider the Dream Journey the ability or the pleasure or the blessing of being able to get up every single day and do what I love and get paid for it. But it takes another step to kind of give people insight and information from a spiritual perspective of how to actually do that, how to take their passions and turn them into profits.
I will say that, you've written, I'm starting to lose fingers of how many fictional books you've written, and then also romance novels you've written as well under your pen name, Nikki Wright, right? So right. So I feel like this must be 1920. I don't know. And it's different. It's different from all your other books.
It is.
Why release this type of book, and especially now?
So several reasons. Yes, it is very different from what I've written. And it came about as a result of a speaking engagement. I do a lot of work with women and motivating girls. And I used to do a session that came out of my marketing days called Passion to Profits, right? Where I would teach people how to create marketing platforms and take things that they were passionate about and find ways to, make profits. And I did it as as a talk, as a keynote, as a session at different events. And then one day someone came to me when I came down off the podium and they said, you got me, but I need more. And I'm like, more? And she's like, yeah. And then another friend said, you're an author, write a book. I need to know what's my next step.
Okay.
So that encouraged the idea of writing the book, which I sat on for a long time because my concern was, how do I write this book? I'm not a nonfiction writer. So I struggled with how to present the information. I didn't want it to come across as just a set of instructions. I didn't want to put my story into it because I didn't want to make it about me. And then I realized that in order to tell the story, I had to tell my experiences. So I went through several iterations of trying to figure out how do I put this book together.
You talk about that you didn't want to put yourself in it, and it took you so much time. So first thing I want to say to you, if my voice counts, is that you accomplished it. You did it, because that book has everything. I was reading, I was like, I missed this part in my journey. Let me make sure I go back to it. So you accomplished that. But how much did you put in that book about you? How much did your career or not, when you were not doing the Dream Journey, how much did you put that in your book?
It was pretty vulnerable for me because there were things that I had to admit, but was really important to the journey because people go through that, right? So the sacrifices that I had to make, the fact that for a time, in pursuit of my journey, in the pursuit of living a life that was inspired by my passions and not just working a job, but doing something I absolutely loved and making that transition, that was hard. So there were times where, my income wasn't where I created this life off of two, full incomes. And so when I was starting out my business and the business is not making a lot and it takes time and it took a couple of years and I was not working, a 9-to-5 and getting a paycheck at the same time, it was very difficult. We had to really scale down our lifestyle completely. We went through some really rough spots. Now I wouldn't take any of it back, but, just revealing that type of information revealing like the doubts that I had, that, wondering if I could actually do this or not. People see me as a very confident person, and for the most part I am, but we all struggle with insecurity. So speaking to the insecurities, speaking to overcoming, some of those insecurities in pursuit of this process, right? And ultimately getting the reward in the end. It's easy to talk about the finished result. It's not easy to talk about the process as you're going through. I spoke about how I felt like I was almost like dealing with depression or something, because I was not, where I wanted to be. And it was taking so much, and I was frustrated and I was overwhelmed, but I was determined at the same time. So those things to me were very vulnerable periods. And it wasn't easy to talk about. It's easy for me to write about somebody else's vulnerabilities in a fiction, but it's not easy to write about your own.
Right. And so you shared a lot, and I'll be honest with you, it was something I think I definitely related to, and I'm sure readers, when they pick the book up, will relate to as well. So you shared that after 9/11, your industry suffers. You were in marketing at the time, and then within, was it 3 years, you were laid off 4 times. And I tell you, when I read that, I felt like I was laid off. I was, not another one, right? But you say something truly inspiring. You say that the seed for your writing career sprouted during between your third and fourth layoff. So my question to you is, right now we're in a pandemic, and there are millions of people who are enduring this right now, who are being laid off, who are kind of like, what am I doing wrong to not keep the job? So my question to you is, what do you say to them when they want to pick up this book but feel the pressure to say, well, maybe I need to be looking for a job. I shouldn't, or maybe I should. Because you also talk about the pressure of needing to be always constantly find a job. And at one point you had to take a step back and say, let me reevaluate.
Right. So with the pressure of feeling like you need a job, I say this is a very personal journey for everybody. I was pushed out of a job because it was like, if I was going to do this, I needed to be able to have all hands on deck and not feel the security of a job. And that's part of the spiritual part, right? So I felt like I had to learn that job security was not necessarily tied to a steady paycheck. So when I had been working in corporate America all these years, and that's what I called or considered security. And when I had lost that, it was like I had lost the foundation that I had known about. But it's also in those very hard moments that I discovered what I was capable of. For me, again, I felt like it was a real spiritual awakening to say, look, you find security in something that you don't even want to be in anyway. So, you ask for time and opportunity to be able to do this. Here it is. And you keep running back and looking for another job. So it's like after the third time, it was like, you know what? I can survive without a steady paycheck. And I can do it where I don't allow that steady paycheck to be a crutch. So if I focus my energies and if I focus my time and I really pursue what it is that I want to pursue, I won't need that steady paycheck. So it kind of released me from feeling tied to the corporate job, and gave me the opportunity to just kind of freely go after my dreams, to really be creative. That little bit of money was also motivation to make more money. And not that we get into business for money, we get into the business, or, we pursue these things to pursue a passion or to make a difference or to add value or to offer something to customers because we see a need or whatever. So it's never really about the money. So I had to learn that it wasn't about the money, and I had to, and it helped me to realize what I really, really wanted and what I needed to do to kind of make it happen. Right. So I had to pack my bags, that pack your bags kind of faith, and say, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And made a very conscious decision to not go back to corporate America and to just pursue this wholeheartedly. I have achieved my dream journey. I get up every single day and I do exactly what I love to do, and I get paid for it. I work with women, I work with youth, and I write. And I get paid to do that, which is so exciting.
In a nutshell, is it safe to say, as a reader of the book, that really that's what your dream journey is, right? Moving towards your desire and dreams and letting that be a part of your life daily until it becomes a source of your income.
Yes. And that's creating a lifestyle, right? So our lifestyles are normally dictated by our income, our job, because that often, lets us know like what part of life do we fit in? If you're making this much, you kind of fit into that one. You fit into this neighborhood, you fit into that. These are the type of friends that you have. So our lifestyle choices are often dictated by our income or things that we spend time doing, the things that we spend our resources on and things like that. I mean, if you want to look at what really someone values, look at how they're spending their time and money, right? So I knew that our careers, our jobs, our professional lives was a huge part of your lifestyle and dictated how a lot of other things kind of fell into place. And I wanted to live a lifestyle that was inspired by the pursuit of my passion. So it took some hard decisions, but I decided I was going to be committed enough to myself, to showing up for myself in order to make it happen and in order to achieve that life. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew it was going to take some hard decisions, but I wanted the result bad enough. I was more ambitious than I was fearful.
One of the things I really enjoyed about your book was that you talk about being vulnerable, and you really were. You shared some really personal, fun, and sometimes not so fun stories. But you also included stories of people you worked with. But what really just, I think, hooked me, and I think this is because you are a great writer, a great fiction writer as well, was the story of a young gentleman in a juvenile detention center. And you have him do this exercise. And I won't lie to you, you say that he cried when he talked about this story. I cried when I read his story because I was seeing what he said, And so I don't want to give it away. I want you to talk about that moment and why was it so pivotal to include his story to kind of open this idea of dream journey and the book.
Okay, so there's those days were like absolutely amazing, and that was me operating in my gift and in my passion. So there's actually two boys that I kind of talk about in the story, and one of them was where I wanted them to dream. That's the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted them to dream, and I wanted them to, we were in a juvenile detention center, and I wanted to challenge them to think of themselves and their lives beyond being in a juvenile detention center, being on lockdown, being on lockup, or whatever it was. And I wanted them to know that that was only part of their story, and that having a dream, was really about having a journey, and that it wasn't about one particular pivotal moment. And I wanted them to see that. I wanted them to understand that being in that detention center was only a part of their story and a very small part of their story. And that if they had a dream, that didn't rob them from the dream. It didn't rob them from the vision. And I wanted them to imagine what that was like. I wanted them to feel what that was like, to understand what that was like, and to start kind of holding on to that in some ways and holding a place for that in themselves. And the interesting thing is for some people, it's hard to dream. It's hard to think about the possibilities. It's hard to think about where you could be depending on where you are. So encouraging, and his thing was like, it's hard for me to think of what could be because all I know is what I know. And what I know is dark. What I know is painful. What I know is it hurts. And it was like, I had to help him get beyond that and to see not just what was in front of him, but what was also possible. But I think that was a poignant way to kind of show all of us what's possible. So everybody's situation may not be as detrimental as being sitting in a prison. But no matter what your situation is, whether you're on a job that you don't like, whether you're in a home that you feel like, you want more, whether you're in a situation, a relationship, whatever it is, like we have to be able to imagine and dream about what we really, really, really want beyond that, because that will create the path to get there. Like you first have to have that vision, and then you can start walking towards that vision. And I let him know too that you may be here now, but if you have this vision and you have this dream, and let's map this thing out and see what it looks like and feel, all the feels that we can get as far as what it would feel like to walk in it. And to let you know that you may be sitting here now, but the first moment that you take a step in the direction of pursuing that dream of yours, that you're already on your dream journey. So the idea to him, as well as the other boys in that juvenile detention center that day was, you mean I can be on my way to fulfilling my dreams even while I'm right here. And that was really powerful for them. So yeah, they made me cry a lot.
They made me
in those
cry
sessions.
because I think
Um,
sometimes you do feel limited to what you're in. Like there's, no time with work. If you're a parent, your children, there's a lot of things that kind of constrict you from thinking you can dream,
it
even doing
is.
that.
Yeah. And he was determined, and he was like, I don't have a happy place. Like, I don't know what that looks like. And I encouraged him, like, we're going to find you your happy place. We're going to think, I told him for the next week until I came back, anytime you smiled, anytime you felt good, I want you to think about what it is that made you smile, what it is that made you feel good. So we can harness that and we can find your happy place. And then we can, create a journey, a path to actually get there so that you can be at your happy place all the time. As much as
Harnessing.
possible.
I love this idea of harnessing. And one of the things you talk about, so I'm going to jump in. I'm just going to apologize to the viewers because the truth is, I want to talk about everything, and we can't. We can't. I'm sorry, we can't. But so I think, so one of the things you talk about in chapter 3 is you discuss passion versus purpose. And then you share this aha moment, which was also an aha moment for me. You captured on the perspective of purpose versus passion. And you literally say, you initially took, well, here's the quote. I initially mistook my passion for a hobby, right? But, you realize there was so much more. So, there are a lot of people out there, who literally, I think, I would say probably half the world think a lot of the things they're doing are just hobbies, or they've been told, you even referenced, like, you were taught, go to school, get a job, get the degree, and then you'll do well. And life has shown you otherwise. But for a lot of people, including my upbringing, it was the same. Go to school, get a job, you'll do well. And then, you hit a time like the pandemic, and none of that is saving you in some instances. So my question to you is, how do people begin the process of moving towards the idea that their hobby can be their lifestyle?
So I discovered that it was not just something I like to do. So what I like to believe is that there's a path to your passion. And that's where it gets spiritual for me, right? It goes right to the word. So it wasn't just a hobby. I realized it wasn't just a hobby because other people weren't able to do this. Only certain other people did, right? So when you think, and I use this example in the book, like a baker, you don't want me to bake a cake for you. I'm not a baker, right? But there are some people who they may never really like grow up in the kitchen, or they may never have formal education when it comes to baking or culinary school, but they can make, it's something about the science of baking that they just get, right? And they can make an awesome cake. And no matter what they make, it's going to taste good. Mine is not going to taste good. So I realized that I was much more passionate about that. And I was able to look back and show all the ways that writing wasn't just a hobby, that it was something that had always been with me, and that I had not only enjoyed it, but I was gifted for it. I was able to do this. I had natural gifts and talents and abilities. And if I look back, I saw times where, people would call me for everything from writing obituaries to writing websites and resumes. My sister used to call me because she needed to write out her job performance reviews, and was like, I need a better way to say this. So I was always the words girl. Then I realized at that point that there was this alignment, right? So that started with your natural gifts, talents, and abilities, and then you have this desire to do this thing all the time, and you enjoy it, and you're indulgent, it indulges you. And then, these dreams come up, right? Like, what if I could do this? And I would love to do that. And what if you dream about life as an author, life as a writer, and what would that be like? And that's kind of where it stays. And then you start indulging it. And then one day I realized that this is more than just something I like to do. And I create opportunities to do it more and more and more and more. I would create opportunities to write at work. I would take on opportunities to write at home. I had full-time jobs and would seek out magazines and send query letters so I can write for those publications. I was creating stories. I went to film school. I was creating stories all the time just for the sake of creating stories. My first book wasn't written to be a book that I was in pursuit of publishing. It was because I enjoyed writing. If I came home and I had a bad day, my characters had a bad day. If I had a good day, my characters had a good day. And I realized that there was so much more to this thing just being a hobby. The other side to that is I'd seen people work jobs that they really loved, and I had never experienced that. And I was like, I want that. I want to be able to do something that I really love and I really enjoy, and I want to get paid for it. I knew what it was like to hate your job, and I knew what it was like to like your job. But I wanted to know what it was like to love my job. So it was like, well, how can I do that? What if I took the thing that I love doing and I created an opportunity to make money out of it, and then I can get paid and do what I love doing, and then life would just be so different. I just couldn't imagine. And that's how I pursued that. I started exploring, how can I get paid for to do these things that I really love to do? But I just knew that it was more to it than just, I like to do this, because of the desire to do it would not leave me alone.
So what I'm gathering is someone who's at home watching this interview, watching us, and who's mulling over like, yeah, this is something I really love to do. From your story, it's not just about, it's really this nagging feeling that won't go away. So you're constantly doing it. You're finding opportunities to do it, even if it's free, or if you're being called upon by other people to do it. You're like, yeah, I'm in. And then it starts to expand the vision you have of what you were doing. So like you said, you were right, and then you thought about all these things that you could do with writing and beyond. So like your symposiums, working with children and teaching them how to write more creatively. So really those would be some of the ways that would probably identify that, yeah, this is more than a hobby. Is that safe to say?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, you think about all the stuff that's possible. And you start to see them for the first time. You never really saw them before.
So one of the things that I won't lie to you, had me shocked in a good way, right? Shocked and scared, was that in chapter 4, you mentioned failure being useful, writing, you'll meet failure along the way. Failure is your teacher, educating you on the right and wrong way to go about something.
Right.
Failure serves as your guide as much as inspiration does. Most writers, authors won't even mention failure in a book like this. They won't even talk about it. You did. Why did you feel compelled to include that in there?
Because it's an important part of the journey. And not only is it an important part of the journey, but people meet failure and they run scared. They turn around, they go, okay, this is not for me. And I don't want people to come to a point where they failed or something, or they believe that they failed, right? When they really didn't fail. And they abandon their passion, they abandon their dream, or they abandon their journey. And I really thought it was important. Like I'm a language girl, right? I'm a writer. I've loved words since I was like a little girl. And I think language is really important, and in our belief system, the mindset that's associated with that language. And I think that the mindset that's often associated with failure is that it's bad. And I don't believe that failure is bad. I feel that failure is something that teaches us that if it didn't work this way, that's not the way to go about it next time, right? Mm-hmm. It teaches us what works. It teaches us what doesn't work. I think failure serves as like a caution, right? So if you're starting to feel a little bit failure, I think it's an alert to say, hey, pay attention, pay attention to what you see, what you're experiencing, or whatever. So there's something in there to learn. There's a lesson in there. I think failure is a way to kind of show us like how bad we really want something. And I think the failure really produces resilience and grit. And it's possible. I mean, the most successful people in the world have a long list of failures. And if you don't allow yourself to be okay with failing at some things, then you'll never make it to where you want to be.
It's fair to say that this book in some ways is instructional, but you do give key steps in professionalizing your passion. However, it's not only instructional, you refer to it as a spiritual guide, and you include scripture. You talk about your belief systems and why it's so important part of, what you do. So why was it important for you to incorporate that in this book?
Because it was part of my journey. It was a very vital part of it's the foundation of my journey. It's where I believed in myself enough to know that this was possible, because I had always been very ambitious, and with my belief system that I grew up with, I kind of felt like it may not have been okay to be so ambitious. You should be happy with what you have. You should be content with where you are. And I couldn't understand why I wanted so much if I was supposed to be so content with whatever I had. So I literally took a Bible that I had and I wrote questions in the back of the Bible asking, like, is it okay to be ambitious? Is it okay to desire some of the things that I'm desiring? Because, I want to be a good Christian. I want to be, my spiritual journey and my faith meant a lot to me. And I didn't want to defy my faith for things that didn't make sense. But then I couldn't make sense of the fact of why I felt like this burning desire to do certain things. So I went on this journey to find out, forget about what other people said, forget about what shaped my belief system, because a lot of times our belief systems are made of myths, right? Mm-hmm. So I went on like a personal, like spiritual journey to figure out what was this about? And I found so much in that process, from the Bible to stories and speaking to people and everything. And just with my own time, with God, and learned that's when I learned that, it wasn't by mistake. It wasn't a coincidence that I had this gift of writing. Writers write. And other people, they don't like writing. They don't want to write. They're not interested in writing. Writers write, artists create, and that's a natural spiritual thing, being given those gifts and those talents and abilities. And through the word, I realized that we are given talents, gifts, and abilities. We're supposed to use our talents, gifts, and abilities. In the Bible, he asked Moses, what's in your hand? It's what you have in your hand that you can create a whole lifestyle from. Your gift will make room for you. So it's like, if this is a gift and it will make room for me in life, that means that there's opportunity out there for me to do this professionally and everything else. So I had to kind of overcome like that whole weird concept and idea that I shouldn't be ambitious and I shouldn't do that. And I literally came up with this journey of all the reasons why I should, and all the support biblically, that everything biblically that supported that, living life abundantly, that plans for us to prosper. We don't have because we don't ask. I mean, I can go on and on with all the different scriptures, hope deferred in the Proverbs. It says hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I realized that that's part of my journey. Like, this is how I can be a good Christian. This is how I can be a good child of God, is by showing, sharing what God has given me with the world. Where passion meets purpose.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, it's a journey that I'm happy to have learned about. And I want to make sure that the person who's watching right now gets the opportunity to learn about this journey as well. So first of all, where can they get this book?
It can be found on my website, anything you can find on my website, and it's ReneeDanielFlagler.com. You can find it on Amazon. It's available through ebook. It's available through print book. So go to my social media. There's links in my social media. So just about anywhere, even if you libraries.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me. I really enjoyed this journey that we're having right now. And I can't wait to see more of these types of books from you as well your others.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This was wonderful. I'm excited to get this out because I really do think that it's going to help people and maybe avoid some of the crazy contemplating that I did and getting started late, but give somebody else permission to say, this is possible for me. That's all I want to do with this. I want to give someone an opportunity to have an epiphany and say, I can have this.
Yes, I'm here for that. So I want to thank, again, Renee Flagler for coming on and sharing her journey and also giving us insight into this book, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And if you have any questions or comments about what you saw today, or suggestions about more books that you would like to hear on today's program or in the future programs, definitely send us a note at the email address below. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Carlene Lavelle. Have a good one.